Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your author Mark coming to you with another interesting discussion. This title of this video will be the American borders, language, and culture. And by the way, this video is also dedicated to a good friend of to two good friends of mine. One, and they know who they are. This video is dedicated to them. Now, a couple hours ago, I had a semi good conversation with my friend, and by the way, he did ask some very interesting questions regarding our our issue that we're going to be discussing. And what we are going to be discussing is our American borders, language, and culture. He asked, um, he asked a very interesting question. But here's my answer to this particular question. And the reason I'm going to answer this question with a question. How come when other countries like Egypt, like Mexico, for example, and other countries, or even the more democratic, all right, more democratic countries such as Australia and New Zealand and even Great Britain are enforcing the immigration laws, nobody says anything to them. But if we, the American people, start to enforce by using the ICE agents and our immigration people, when we start to enforce our laws, our immigration laws, mind you, then we are demonized. Okay, and mind you, countries like Egypt and Mexico are not as sophisticated countries as we are. But here's the thing, and here's what is a good thing about them is they are pragmatic in enforcing their immigration laws. For example, let me give you an example. What I'm talking about. Egypt has a law in their immigration laws. If you want to become their citizen, and if they even let you, but if you want to have their citizenship, you have to be able to speak Arabic fluently. You have to be able to read and understand Arabic, and you have to be able to write Arabic. And on top of it all, you under their under their Egyptian nationality law, because you can get citizenship through naturalization, but you have to meet very strict requirements. Like you have to be able to speak Arabic, you have to be able to read and write Arabic, and the third thing is you cannot have any disabilities or whatsoever. Now, granted, Egypt has the most strict immigration law. However, Mexico, by the way, has similar law. It's called a population control law, and it states that, and their law states a little bit differently in Mexico. It states that in order for you to get Mexican citizenship, you can get it. However, you have to be able to speak write and read Spanish, you have to have the ability to support yourself. Okay, you have to have the capability to support yourself. You you have to have a clean criminal record. You cannot be a burden to basically to the country of Mexico. You and the most interesting thing is they have what you call an equilibrium law. For example, if the Mexican government feels that you are a disruption to their system, or you are a basically not, that you don't fit into their system very well, then they have the right, to actually deport you. And both and Egypt, by the way, has the same principle, works on the same principle, where if you don't learn how to speak Arabic in Egypt, if you don't comply with their cultural laws, then they have a right to throw you out. And here's what is interesting. For this discussion, we're gonna leave it alone. How those countries enforce their laws, but I am gonna leave. I'm gonna put those immigration laws in the description. So in the description, and I'm gonna leave a link to those particular laws in the what do you call it, in the comment section below. Now, my question is, how come those countries, and Australia in itself Australia and New Zealand have a very interesting law, immigration law, under their belt as well. For example, they worked out that they have a point system for you to get in. That means if you can speak English, you get a point. If you can write English, you get an extra point. And you have to have certain amount of points in order to actually qualify for their entrance visa program, either to Australia or New Zealand. Now, question is, how come nobody says anything to those countries how they enforce their immigration laws? But if our president Donald J. Trump tries to enforce the immigration laws by using everything in his disposal, including ICE agents and all that stuff, we are vilified. Now, we are vilified because we, the American people, want to see our immigration laws enforced. Now the thing is, you see, here's where I get kind of upset, because nobody tells Egypt how to enforce their immigration laws. Nobody tells Mexico if they choose to enforce. Well, nobody tells Egypt, for example, how to and how to and why and all these other questions. Nobody tells Egypt how to enforce their immigration law. Nobody tells Mexico how to enforce their immigration law. Nobody tells New Zealand, or nobody tells Australia, or even Great Britain how to enforce their immigration laws. But however, when we, the American people, with President Trump, in front, when we try to enforce our immigration laws in our country so we can protect our borders, our language, and our culture. Okay, when we try to protect our borders, our language, and our culture, then we are vilified. But when the other countries do it, okay, such as Egypt, I already named them in this video. Nobody says a thing. Now, look, without, I don't, I say, because we already had such societies collapse, like Atlantis, like ancient Rome, ancient Greece, all those other things. And why did those civilizations, and even Egyptian civilization has collapsed, but nobody, like the Roman civilization. But why do you think those civilizations collapsed? That is because they could not protect their own borders, language, and culture. Now the thing is, like I said, if we, the American people, try to enforce our borders, language, and culture, we are vilified, and those people who are under our American Constitution have a right and a responsibility, such as ICE agents, to protect our borders, language, and culture. Then those people are vilified as well. Now, and unfortunately, I have some bad news, and that is, if we do not, now, a friend of mine also asked, should the Insurrection Act be used in this case? I would say, in this case, it's about time to actually put the Insurrection Act into practice, because here's the thing. In America, when we talk about democracy, and if we want to maintain this republic, okay, then unfortunately, if we do not enforce our borders, language, and culture, I'm afraid that if we don't enforce our borders, our language, and our culture, and have some sort of, may I say, standards that we have to uphold in order to maintain this republic, okay, to make sure that our country has borders, language, and culture, and to make sure that our country has a future, then unfortunately we will have to enforce our laws, or we will end up like ancient Rome and ancient Greece. Now, the thing is, we also have to think about, now there are some, now a lot of people are also saying that we do need what we call immigration reform in this country. And to that degree, I would have to say, yes, we do. However, what we have to ask ourselves, should we introduce the point system in order for the new immigrants to get in, or so that do we have to do some, what do you call, some safety net and reform the entitlement programs? All the answers to that question is an absolute yes. Now, they're saying, oh, this cannot be done. This will take too long. Blah blah blah. However, but the most democratic and and by the way, the most liberal countries in this world has already done it. Like I said, Australia, New Zealand, and even England have a point system. So they actually, and you have to. And by the way, in order to get into England, in order to get into New Zealand, Australia, you have to be able to speak English. You have to be a productive citizen, so that you can help those nations such as Mexico, New Zealand, and all those stuff, so that you can help those nations prosper. Now, should we, the American people, adopt like a point system? It may work. Do we have to reform the entitlement programs? Possibly. All of those. I mean, because a lot of people say that we don't have a template or how to do these reforms. Look, other countries such as New Zealand, Great Britain, Australia have done it. They introduced point systems for you to get in. For example, in order to get into Australia, you have to be able to speak English. You get a point. You have to have some sort of skill that Australians would want and need. So that's a point for you. If you can support yourself, then you can get in. Now, could we do something like that? Possibly, but is it necessary for us to implement the immigration law? Is it time for us to enforce our immigration laws? Yes, that's an absolute yes. And is it time for us to introduce some immigration reform, like on the model of New Zealand and all those other places? Possibly, yes. Now, I would say yes, because if we do not enforce our immigration laws, in my opinion, and if we do not reform the entitlement programs and reform some of the entry requirements to our country, then unfortunately we will end up like ancient Greece or ancient Rome. So I'm going to say goodbye for now, and I will see you in my next video.